Hell yeah. You want to talk about pelvises?
Yeah.
I mean, if you keep it PG, dude, I know how you get off camera.
All right. Lead
Especially
leg,
when pelvises come
pelvis, and hip extension. This is an insane title, Lindley. This is gonna if we just probably just tweet it out actually on Monday saying like in this podcast.
Lindley unlocks pelvis game.
I mean, I feel like if we just said like pelvis talks for pitching mechanics, everyone on pitching Twitter, I feel like would.
The extension poll kind of was pretty popular too. I wouldn't be surprised.
But yeah, so run us through the initial
lower
request.
Half stuff is just bumping.
So
originally, request, how you approached it.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of sparked because of the second SPM blog that we've been talking about the last couple.
Oh wait. Oh dude, did we ever? Did we ever get your edits from that, Brady?
I put a couple things in there, but I don't think I got a chance to send the full ones because Arizona got shut down.
Yeah. Hopefully we can. Let's try to do that this week.
Yeah.
But anyways, it was a significant result, but ended up not being after we took out some outliers. The back hip extension was related to higher velocity in the shorter cohort. So. I was talking to one of the trainers about that, and they brought up how does hip extension affect the ability to, or does the pelvis need to be open to have a good block, or are those related? And then does that back hip extension negatively affect how athletes rotate their pelvis? So basically, I just compared lead leg block performance metrics, which are just knee extension velocity at a few various points at maximum, at foot plant, and at ball release, and then looked at a correlation between that and pelvis angle at foot plant. So if how open was their pelvis at foot plant to see if that was related, and it was at foot plant, or it was related to all of them pretty weakly. But then I bend them by 1 standard deviation below the mean pelvis angle and 1 standard deviation above the mean pelvis angle. So
by the way, I'll pop in and say this is fire kind of foreshadowing for my carrot chat later, but I keep going.
Let's go. Can't wait to hear, dude. So people with really open pelvis at foot plant, and then people with a lot more closed pelvis at foot plant. And then we found that at foot plant, there was a significant difference between those two groups of mean knee extension velocity at foot plant. But not at maximum and not at ball release. Though there was a slight negative trend. So basically at foot plant, those who had a more open pelvis had on average 80 degree per second faster lead knee extension. So basically they were just blocking earlier than the more closed pelvis group, which is something that
it was cut off at 54 and 26, it looks like.
Yes. Yeah. So people with 56 degrees of pelvis angle, which is like it's more than halfway open to the home plate, and then people who are much less than half open. Yeah. So, and then I did a comparison of those same two groups but throughout the full signal, and found that there was a lot of significance, there was a lot of significant difference at different nodes, basically time points in that between those two groups. And on average, the more open pelvis had a faster lead knee extension throughout the entire window that we analyzed. So
yeah, this is very, very similar to the findings in the original SPM blog.
Yeah.
Also, I want to say this is also just backs up like way earlier stuff that Caravan and I looked at like a long time ago, and starting the whole like impulse, pelvis, angle, blocking discussion.
I wasn't sure if you guys had actually done this exact comparison, because I know that we had kind of inferred that having an open pelvis makes it easier to block, or you get a better block if you have an open pelvis. But I wasn't sure if we had, or I wasn't aware of any like direct analysis between the two variables. So that's why I wanted to go through this. And Stephen, shout out Stephen Hart, was really interested. And then he was also, the second part of it was, if pelvis angle is important in blocking, there's kind of a stigma that maybe back hip extension might, too much like extension, if the back hip might decrease somebody's ability to open up their pelvis as efficiently or move their pelvis as efficiently. So I did a similar analysis.
Like they're leaping down the mound or something?
Yeah, similar, like basically that idea.
Gotcha.
And then I did a similar bend analysis between the people who have a really high max back hip extension and really low max back hip extension, and found that there was no difference in the full signal, and there was also no significant difference in group means between the two groups. So those who
how many bends were there?
Just two. I just did.
Okay.
Yeah. So those were basically the findings, and then it's like more or less backs up what was in the second SPM blog as well. So that was pretty interesting, and it's like it can open the discussion up to more, because I think that there might be some debate on the role of back hip extension in the throw. So if it doesn't adversely affect pelvis angle, then maybe different conversation can be had about that. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I really like. Yeah, I just get super domed up about what we're going to see when we have force plates.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very important little caveat that we should let everyone know, that like we're quantifying lead leg block by lead knee extension angular velocity, because that's the best thing that we can do right now, because we don't have force plates in our data set.
And I put that in my tweet thread. Like one of the tweets was like, the main limitation to this first pelvis rotation lead leg thing is that we're not actually measuring ground reaction forces.
100%. It's very possible that you could block or create a high anterior posterior ground reaction force from a closed pelvis, or you could do that without having like a large lead knee extension angular velocity. Yeah. Like that's very possible. But from like a just raw kinematics perspective, with pelvis angles and lead knee extension angular velo, there is something there. It's just going to be tough until we have that force plate data to know if that like anterior posterior GRF increase decrease is there.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be really cool.
Yeah.